Welcome back to another bonus edition of a Save Your Sanity live stream. I am really excited today because you're cooped up, we're cooped up, they're cooped up. Cooped up in itself has tension in it, and then cooped up with teenagers. Add to that that teenagers don't want to be cooped up, and we have a problem. And we have the answer. We have Aaron Huey here from Fire Mountain Programs. He works with teens all day long. Welcome, Aaron.
Thank you so much, Doctor. Really appreciate having this opportunity again.
Well, I'm so excited, and we're going to do another podcast on unhappy teens and how being with toxic parents exacerbates unhappiness in teens and creates confusion. But
Yeah.
today, we just want to talk about the realities of being cooped up with a teen who is experiencing things that they just didn't want to experience, like their moods and their immediacy and their unwelcome restrictions. I have to stay home. Who am I? I mean, look at those kids on the beach in Florida, right?
My gosh, yeah, of course. I think we're dealing with the situation always. Always are we dealing with the situation that in a family dynamic system, the strongest nervous system wins. Now that's something as adults that we're very familiar with, maybe unconsciously, but we're very familiar with it. When you are at work, the people who have the strongest nervous system are running the show. And we tend to like to believe that parents have the strongest nervous system, but very often I'm working with families where the child has the strongest nervous system. Strongest doesn't mean best. Strongest doesn't mean most regulated. Strongest means biggest, loudest, most energetic, highest energy. And right now, everybody's energy is so chaotic. It is so explosive. It is so potent. It is so unknown to all of us, even us Gen Xers, even boomers who've been through just different life-threatening circumstances. This has been an extended period of time where no one knows where safety is. With the information we're getting, the information that's trickling down, the conversations we're having as adults that children are overhearing, it is causing nervous system collapse. And I'm not even talking about the kids yet. I'm still talking about the parents. So we are in a time of unknown, and the trickle down effect of unregulated nervous system is wreaking havoc.
Well, everybody just take a big breath, let it out. Okay, we're all in this together. This nervous system business, on a good day, without being cooped up, we have our shoulders creeping up to our earlobes.
Yes.
We're cooped up. We have our freedoms curtailed. And then we have these teenagers who have their freedoms curtailed. They're angry. They're angry at everybody. They're angry at us. They're angry at the world. They're angry at everything that's not going to happen. And how could this possibly happen? And so this whole nervous system thing, everybody's a bit on fire. Everybody's a bit on overload, and everybody's kind of dancing on everybody's last nerve. So, what is the advantage of being the person with the strongest nervous system?
Well, I'll tell you, first and foremost, so I founded a Fire Mountain Residential Treatment Center. So we're in a residential program for teens ages 12 to 17, both boys and girls who are dealing with mental health issues, dependency, self-harm, addictions, these types of things. So, but our kids do not have access to the news outside, right? They're here to focus for 4 months on their recovery, getting schoolwork in a very functional way back under their belts, getting them reading again, constant therapy. But our house was sliding sideways during this process. And it was very easy to see, wait a second, these kids don't know what's going on. So that's number one. They don't know what's going on. Number two, where are they getting their information from? The adults. They were from the staff. The staff who were going home. The staff who was, and it wasn't until we had to sit, we pulled back from the kids' chaos and said they have no reason for chaos other than what they're feeding off of with the adults. So all you staff who are going home and you're listening to the news and the podcasts and all the information, the false information, you're bringing that into the facility. And if you're not aware of the energy you're bringing into the facility, you're unconscious. And if the child whose safety requires your consciousness can't feel you, right? Because we say connection before correction. Whether you it's
Mm.
a connection to the problem, a connection to the person, a connection to the place, or a connection to the thing, you must connect before you can correct. And so here we were trying to get these kids to correct their behavior without truly being connected to them. Why? Because I had staff saying, "Is my job safe? Is Fire Mountain going to shut down? Are we going to
Yeah.
send all the kids home? Are we a healthcare facility that's exempt if everything becomes quarantine?" Which we are. But nonetheless, that's very human fear. And that's
Mhm.
going to trickle down. That's the energy that was brought into the house. And so that's the way the kids were like, "Okay, that's our strongest energy. Let's go that way." So the benefit, the first and foremost benefit to regulating your own nervous system as a parent, as a boss, as a teacher, with your students, with your children, with your employees, is that they have a foundation upon which they can be afraid. Children are going to be afraid. These children have heard. They don't have access to passes like they had. They know something's going on. The adults are talking about it. But how? And doctor, this is what I was saying at the beginning. I'm not so much interested in what a parent says to their child. I'm interested in how they're saying it. Because
Mhm.
if you're like, yeah, the I mean, I don't know where the money's going to come from, and I don't know where groceries are coming from. I haven't slept in 3 days versus, "Kid, I'm struggling right now. And I don't know if I'm going to have a job in 3 weeks. And I'm really trying to figure out where I'm going to get the money for groceries. And I'm having trouble sleeping. I love you. And we're going to figure this out together." Like I said,
Mhm.
the same things, but it was how I said it that made all the difference. And I
Oh,
cannot say the very grounded, "Hey, kid, this is what we're going through," when I haven't slept, haven't eaten, haven't been drinking water, haven't been exercising. My finances are a mess. I'm stressed. I'm angry. I've got to take care of what's going on. It's the oxygen mask, right? If I can't breathe, how am I going to help anybody else breathe?
yes. And we live in a society that sometimes has that formula in the wrong order.
Absolutely.
And that's why we have a rule, put on your oxygen mask before you help somebody else, because it's not intuitive.
Yeah.
That I can't give the way I talk about it, Aaron, is I can't give a gift I do not have. I might want to give you attention. I might want to give you lack of anxiety. I might want to bring you peace. But unless I have that within myself, I don't have that gift to give. And you're bringing up such a great point that how are you behaving? How are you self regulating? How are you self monitoring? Because you've got to get parent together so the kid can take a cue
Yeah.
and grab a clue,
Well,
right?
there's a few things. Like number one, when I was in the EMT school, they constantly taught us walk to the accident, walk to the accident. I saw a rollover accident happen in front of me, my wife, and my kids. We were coming into Boulder. We saw the flipped over vehicle in the field and the Jeep that was catching fire. I saw smoke coming from the flipped over vehicle. I got out of my car and I heard a woman yell, "Help, help," from the vehicle. And I ran towards the vehicle, going against the training. I hit a barbed wire fence right on the tops of my thighs.
Yeah.
It grabbed my legs and my pants and it flipped me over onto my back. It cut my skin, it tore my jeans, and it knocked the wind out of me. Now I am walking towards a rollover accident where someone most likely has a spinal injury, and the woman did. I can't breathe and I'm bleeding. Not being able to breathe and having open wounds, that's the worst time to be a paramedic. The way I talk about it on my podcast, the way I talk about it when I teach parents is, you take care of yourself first, your adult relationships second, and your children third. Because if we do it in that way, we do our best work with our children. What can you possibly offer a child whose safety is being threatened if you don't feel safe yourself?
Mhm.
How do we explain something we've never experienced to our children? How do we go through this? And I guarantee you, folks, it's the how that's so much more important than the what you say. I don't know what you should say. You're going to say what's in your heart. You're going to offer your kids whatever tools you have at your disposal. But how you do it will mean the difference between it regulating your family or unregulating your family.
Yeah, and these are things that are so key, and yet who tells us these things? I mean, for many of us, we're brought up in families where we just kind of got by and cobbled it together.
Sure.
Everybody did the best they could. It sometimes happens that when we have a problem with a kid in our life, somehow that brings the magnifying glass to it, and then we start to learn things. Or maybe we have a conscious decision that we want to be the best parent possible, and we happen to do some pre-learning. I remember when I used to give classes to parents who were just new, and I would say to them, oh, I hope that that 30-second to 3 minute that created this baby was a really good time. And they'd all gasp, and I'd say, because in that 30 seconds to 3 minute period, you undertook to be a role model of how to be a man, how to be a woman, how to be a man and woman, woman and woman, man and man in relationship for those children for the rest of your life.
Right.
So grab a clue now that you have to be your best self on display all the time, and you're not going to be, but you have to be working at it, and you have to be able to say when you're not. You have to be aware. You got to be in the program. You got to be in the mindset. And it is not a simple matter, because how many children really weren't all that planned, or happened and were accommodated later, or maybe ended up in foster care. I mean, lots of things happen
Sure.
to kids. One of my friends, Richard Viasana, he owns foster care, a foster home, forever homes for foster kids.com. And we talk about foster kids all the time and what's happened to them. Here we have a situation with the virus that courts are closed.
Yeah.
What hasn't closed is that, I don't forget what he told me, some awful number, like 453 kids a day are being emancipated out of the foster system with a plastic bag full of their clothes and a little bit of money and left at a bus station.
Right.
What do they do in this
There
situation,
you
in
go.
this climate?
Right. What kind of job could you hope to get?
Well, they don't have any experience with daily living and providing.
Right.
And then you set them out in a place where there are no social services. Courts are closed. Places where you could go to get a check or you could go to be safe may or may not be open. What an incredible situation. So, back to the ones that we have live in the house
Right.
with us. What is the most proactive thing that we can do aside from taking the best care we can of ourselves, interacting with those teens? What is the most proactive way that we can be or say or do, considering that we are dealing with teenagers?
Understanding that the philosophy of the lecture is a dead science is our first key. Like if I ask any parent, and I do every parent weekend we run, how many of you remember a truly profound lecture your parents gave you that changed your life? Not one person raises their hand. Like this is not, we don't remember the lectures. What we remember is what our parents did or did not do. So modeling is the key. So my first answer, again, back to the how, is what we're going to model. We're going to model as parents giving deposits to five energies: emotional, physical, spiritual, mental, and financial. These are five energies of adulthood that we must balance in our lives. And right now, all five feel in jeopardy. We are, like I said, our safety at a very core experience has been removed. Some people have lost jobs.
Hmm.
We don't know whether we should. I mean, oh, the stock market's down 30%, 7% in a bull market that's going to last 9 months. Now's the time to buy stock. Now. And people are like, I need groceries and I'm not allowed to leave the house.
Right.
So you're telling me to invest in stocks, like, but the practicality is, what does it look like to make a financial deposit? It doesn't just look like putting money in all the time. Sometimes it looks like making that dollar holler. Sometimes it looks like sitting down and making the budget so that you really know how much you have. That is a financial deposit. Emotionally, what's going on? Do you have an adult support system in place where you can talk about adult problems and not just have the big adult emotions in front of the kids? I'm not saying adults shouldn't have emotions when they parent.
No.
I should say adults should have emotions in appropriate places when they parent, and adult emotions are saved for adults. Children are exposed all day long to adult sized things. But as humans, we have not, we are still developing at the same speed we developed 1,000 years ago. Our brains are developing at the same speed that our brains developed 1,000 years ago. But information, visual stimulation is moving way faster than that. And so we can continue to bombard our kids with things they're not ready to deal with, like huge adult size emotions. So find an adult support system to have these adult emotions with. What are you doing physically? I love the memes that the dogs are now hiding from the owners because they're getting 7 walks a day. I love that. All right, because that's good. That means people are moving. But what we forget is this energy that's coming in from everything the government and the health professionals are saying. What are you doing with that energy? That's a lot of energy coming in. And if all we're doing is sitting on Facebook, then that energy is not going anywhere. So move the energy mentally. Are you stimulating your brain? Are you reading, or are you really just getting the dopamine rush of Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest? Because we know science is telling us that's what we're getting when we're on social media. Look, folks, an hour of social media a day is okay. That's good for you. After that, the tipping point, and it goes rapidly down into just maladaptive coping strategy. So we've got
Or avoidance.
avoidance, right? And then there's spiritual. I like to say that we need 4 altars in our house as adults: our bedrooms, our dinner tables, our spiritual altars, and our office. These are 4 sacred places in our homes. So, what are you doing spiritually to feed yourself on a daily basis? While I work, I listen to my chant music, my Viking chant music, and that just feeds my soul. Learning Icelandic while I'm trying to, but I'm very ADHD, so I can do that. But
Really?
you can't tell. Oh, wait a second. And then there we go.
Purple squirrel. Yeah.
Purple squirrel.
Okay.
So make sure that you're making investments in all 5 energies each day, and that you're putting your media down for dinner, and you're
Oh,
plugging your
yeah.
phone in at 8 o'clock at night and sitting down and reading a book, and you're creating quiet time in the house, and that you're all taking the dog out for a walk. By God, there's an opportunity in the midst of this crisis. We do our best work as human beings. We make the best changes when we are facing adversity. Adversity is the mother of paradigm shifting. And that's what we have an opportunity now, because we are faced with obstacles at every single turn in our days now. Utilize it, do
Hmm.
something with it.
Whoa, big, 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 supersized adult ideas along with a lot of energy.
Yeah.
But I was speaking with somebody, a client earlier, and like you, I'm talking to clients all over the world all the time. And she had a 15-year-old, and things weren't going particularly well. The relationship was falling apart. There was violence, there was alcohol, everything's going on. And I said to her, as a new person, so I'm learning about her, I said, what kinds of conversations do you have with your 15-year-old, the eldest of your children? Are they 15-year-old conversations? Because I
Right.
want to say to you, do not turn your child into your confidant or make them become an adult before their time. This child should feel that you have her safety in mind, you have her back. You are the one who is the everlasting arms here, that you are not adultifying her in an early capacity. And she's doing a good job with that. But it was a good wake up call for her because, of course, when the eldest child and you, and there's 2 more children, and somebody's trying to break in the house, the bond between the 2 eldest is the
Right.
most logical intellectual bond. But I was explaining to her how she needs to take care of the emotional bond there, that don't overburden the child with adult things. So it flows directly from what you're saying about adult size emotions. Well, adult size issues are also something. A 15-year-old cannot take care of. What do we do with a father who is emotionally abusive and alcoholic,
Right.
raging and breaking down the door? A 15-year-old can't deal with that. It is inappropriate for a 15-year-old to be able to deal with that. And unfortunately, sometimes it happens. But let's go back to the issue at hand, because we could talk about all the big issues. We've got unhappy teenagers. They're having things going on right now that they didn't expect.
Yeah.
They are having to reframe the prom, reframe graduation. I was thinking what a perfect example of what it is like to have a late teenager is when we had that footage from the spring break on the Florida beaches. Like, I have an entitlement to go to spring break on the beach, and I don't care what anybody says. Nobody's going to ruin my experience. And again, I had this thought, Aaron, when I saw that, and I saw it in video, and then I saw it captured in still shots on Facebook. Same kids, right? And I flashed back. I'm going to date myself here. I flashed back to the cover of Woodstock magazine, or Woodstock album, rather.
Yeah.
And I thought, these kids in that still photograph are going to be the face of teens from the coronavirus of 2020 forever.
Yeah.
It is going to follow them. They are going to be the irresponsible, entitled, mouthy teens with no thought for any other human being but themselves. And what an incredible thing. So, what if you have one at home who's feeling rightly? Of course, we want to empathize with them. They're feeling rightly there's a loss. They're looking forward to something for their entire school career. Now graduation isn't going to be the way it was or when it was. They may or may not have a prom. They've got girlfriend, boyfriend, things that we're all hooked into all of that. What can we give parents to do and say and be that will allow us to directly confront that issue?
So this is not going to be a fun or popular answer, but it's something that you grew up with and I grew up with. And for some reason, as Gen Xers, we didn't feel like we could raise our own kid with it. And I'm seeing the same thing with Gen Y. Why do we have such a hard time letting children be uncomfortable? We don't learn when things are comfortable. We don't learn when life is comfortable. You're not growing, right? We grow when the balance tips. That's when we grow. That's when the muscles flex. And right now the world has tipped. There is nothing you can do as a parent to solve the fact that prom's been canceled other than what you said, doctor. We're going to mirror, we're going to validate, and we're going to empathize. We're going to say when the kid comes to us and goes, this sucks. What did they canceled prom. My girlfriend and I have been looking forward to this for 2 years. We're going to say,
It sucks.
I hear you say how much this sucks. And what makes sense to me about this is like they took away such a magical, powerful experience that so many kids have had. And I imagine you must feel cheated. See, I mirrored what my child said. I validated what they said and I empathized with it. I
Exactly.
can't solve this problem. I cannot cure the COVID virus. I cannot try to make my child feel better. In fact, I am already in a mindset set that I've got to keep my kid from using maladaptive coping strategies because they already feel like shit. And now I'm they're coming to me with this. I haven't seen my girlfriend in 3 weeks, Dad. What I'm like she's gonna break up with me. What am I
And
gonna
I
do?
just discovered sex and I want more of it.
I'm just my hormones are going nuts, and I'm not allowed to sex because that's this, and I can't get connect. Like, and this is where parents got to pull back that judgment and be like, well, none of us don't understand what's going on, and you just need to buckle down, and you need to,
Suck it up.
guys.
No pun intended.
That doesn't work.
No.
What works is we hear what they say without judgment. We validate what they say because this has to make sense to them. Not to you.
Mhm.
You're an adult. You have a prefrontal cortex that's fully developed, and you can come up with all this rationalization. Keep your trap shut, parents. Quit trying to solve this problem or explain away some logic. They're teenagers. Have you met them? They're crazy. Every last one of them, right? And so quit trying to give some sensible, logical solution to this life-size dilemma that they're dealing with. What you can do is completely listen, so much so that you can verbatim say back to them what they said. That means shut up and
Yeah,
listen. And then you validate what they said.
yeah.
You
You
under
jump in with them.
what they just said is so real to them.
Yeah,
It's so active and actual. It's not to you. You're an adult. You're boring. They have this whole thing going on. Make it real for them. Validate it. It's real. It's happening. They lost prom. Do you have any idea? Graduation online? Oh, that sucks. That sucks. How many people learn? What percentage of the population learn best when they're in a classroom environment, a feedback environment? Roberta, when you and I got on this call, do you know what happened when I told my wife I couldn't take the call? Do you know what that call was about? My daughter's wedding just got canceled.
oh,
Right? Right. This is what am I going to say about that? I didn't get either of my weddings canceled. I've had two. Neither of them were canceled. How do I explain this to her? I don't. I listen. Do you know when the Columbine shootings took place? And Michael Moore interviewed Marilyn Manson. He said to Marilyn Manson, "What would you say to these families?" And Marilyn Manson looked at him and said, "I wouldn't say anything. I would listen.
hmm,
How could I possibly understand what's going on? I would listen." And
yeah,
then once I've mirrored it and I validate it, now I empathize. I imagine you must feel. Can you possibly imagine what a teenager must feel like right now?
yeah,
What if the teenager has also not been able to smoke pot for 3 weeks? You know what they're coming up on? They're coming up on relapse. This marijuana is leaving their system.
right.
They're about to relapse. They're about to withdrawal symptoms are about to start. You're going to see depression and anger and anxiety, the likes of which you haven't seen in a while if they've been a daily pot smoker. How could you possibly empathize with them?
Yeah, very, very difficult. And, I just want to draw another point in here, which is when anybody who has an unfinished nervous system, an undeveloped brain, when we haven't got to our final resting stage, when we go into anxiety, when we go into anger, when we get into flight and fight, we tend to regress to
Yeah,
earlier emotions. And so, what I was hearing you talk about and how to validate and identify and empathize, I was thinking about how often I've said to people, well, you got to have the Fruit Loops conversation. And this is what the Fruit Loops conversation is. You say to your 3-year-old, what would you like for breakfast? And the 3-year-old says, Fruit Loops. And you go, okay. And you go to the cupboard, you find you don't have any Fruit Loops. Well, you don't come back, if you're smart, you don't come back to the 3-year-old and you say, we don't have any Fruit Loops. What else do you want? Right? You come back to the 3-year-old and you say, oh, I know you really, really, really want Fruit Loops, and I wish I had them. We don't have any. What do you think we should do? I've got cornflakes. All of a sudden, the 3-year-old's kind of like, oh, energetically, I got it. We're
right.
sad. We don't have Fruit Loops.
Bummer.
Okay, cornflakes, right? and you got a winner. But if you don't validate and you don't empathize and you don't say, I'm hearing you.
Yeah,
It's tough in there. Oh, I had already to taste Fruit Loops. If you don't do that, you miss them. You just miss the moment because you try to say, okay, basically what I'm telling you is life sucks. You suck it up. Move on with it. I don't want to hear you anymore.
right.
And if we don't take the time to get in there, I used to be principal of a school for at-risk teenagers, so I know a little bit about the milieu in which you live and work, and I know what their expectations were. They'd had really sad home lives, most of them, difficulty, maybe no food, maybe no money, maybe no attention,
Right, right.
maybe neglect, benign or otherwise, adverse childhood experiences, childhood emotional neglect, all kinds of things went on. And we have the opportunity as parents to be mitigating all that, not contributing to it. And the things that we're talking about today is being able to say to our teens, like, I realize you haven't seen your boyfriend or girlfriend for 3 weeks. I remember when, I was separated from my partner for that long and it felt real hard. And I was really interested in, sometimes I just didn't even feel well and I felt a little depressed. So I kind of get it. Am I somewhere close in the ballpark to what's going on for you?
Doctor, one of the other things that you're doing that is so powerful and potent that I heard at the moment you started doing it when you were doing the Fruit Loops conversation. And parents need to understand that when we stress, we regress, right? And so when we have a child, a teenager in stress, there's a regression that takes place mentally. And when you went into the Fruit Loops conversation, you used the coochie coo voice. And the coochie coo voice is even when I'm talking to my teenager and they're like, man, I haven't seen my girlfriend in 3 weeks. But I'm like, yeah, that must be difficult. Versus, oh,
Complete
man,
mismatch.
right. You've got to go into the coochie coo. You've got to talk. They're regressing. They're stressed out and they're regressing. And when regression takes place, sometimes parents think, well, this is not, conducive of a grown up and blah. They're not a grown up. They're a child. And in fact, they're stressing. So they're regressing. So now they're even smaller. And you'd be like, oh, honey, I know. And for my daughter, for my son, who are both now mid-20s, I still talk to them like that when we're going through a moving situation with my daughter, knowing that this wedding thing is hovering over her head. And she's coming up. She's like, I just got an email because family members are lashing out at me. They want me to cancel. I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry. And that's the coochie coo voice. And it's the same voice that is anchored in her brain when I held her when she was a little baby crying and
Yes.
uncomfortable, that I said, oh, honey, they're there. And it was the same voice when I said, oh, dude, I love you so much. I know this is so hard, that I said to my son when he was 7 years old and got hurt. And now when he's 24 and his equipment still hasn't been shipped over from Spain because everything's crazy and he's living in New York now, I still don't have my stuff. Oh, dude, I'm so sorry. I love you so much. I hope this works out for you. But I'm going to keep handing the problem back. And that's the other part of my answer about what do I do about these teenagers whose proms and friendships and graduations and school and the social environment has been canceled. I'm going to hand the problem back until it's life and limb. I'm going to trust that my kid is going to figure this out. Now, if I got a kid who uses life and limb threatening maladaptive coping strategies, I, as a parent, will intervene and my child will not get a vote on how I intervene. But if it's not, if this is a boyfriend, girlfriend, look, folks, the percentage of high school relationships or junior high school relationships that feel like the end of the world that actually are is very minuscule. This is not a life and limb situation.
Yeah.
Don't solve the problem. Mirror it, validate it, empathize with it, and hand the problem back. And it sounds like this. I haven't seen my girlfriend in 2 weeks, man. And then now the president said I'm not going to be able to see her for 4 more weeks. She's going to break up with me. Oh,
Not fair.
it's not fair. I know it's not fair. Oh, buddy, I'm so sorry. This is such a struggle. You must be so upset and angry. What's your plan? I don't know. See, when I said, what's your plan? I handed the problem right back. And I'm
Right.
telling my child, I trust you. You're going to figure this out. Now, if I have some input, I'm going to say, well, I've seen what other people have done in harsh situations like this. Do you want some input or do you think you got this one? Now look at how much I trust them. I'm sharing choices. I'm sharing power. And my kid says,
Mhm.
no, I mean, what's it? And now this is the trap. You start solving the problem. The kid argues with every single one of your solutions, right? These teenagers come up with a
Yeah,
problem.
that won't
Give you a
happen.
solution.
You don't
You don't
understand.
understand. And that's where you back off trying to solve it. And you say, I really don't, kid. And this is damaging admission. That's another technique. I really don't know how to solve this one, kiddo. I haven't been through it. B, no one in this world has been through this. Unless you live in a war zone or something like that, we don't know what this is like right now, being quarantined like this. I all I can do is love you and tell you I got your back and help you go through some of the solutions you're coming up with. Well, can I get just go see her? Can I? The moment they ask for the boundary break, it's what you and I said offline. If you are wiggly on the line, there is no line. Don't
That's
wiggle
right.
the line. If it's locked down and you hold it.
Lines aren't permeable. They
Right.
are not written in the sand. They are drawn in ink.
That's right. It's in stone and your kid will figure it out. Keep asking them, what's your plan?
Right. So, wow. We've got so much gold here with my guest, Aaron Huey. We could talk for forever, and we will. We'll continue having these conversations over the years on Save Your Sanity podcast. Aaron will be my guest in a while. So many guests to bring to you, but we will have Aaron back. He was on the Emotional Savvy program. You can go to emotionalsavvy.com and listen to his interview there. He's coming on Save Your Sanity in the near future. Listen to that. But you can understand from his vast experience and his focus on helping teens, particularly ones who are in trouble and struggling, he has gold for keeping kids healthy before they struggle. And if you're cooped up with your teenager right now, he just gave you fabulous things to do. And I think I threw in a few there too. So you can listen to his podcast at Beyond Risk and Back. That's a great place to go. You can find me at Transforming Relationship. If you'd like to listen to my podcast, you will find it here at Save Your Sanity podcast. And if you want to be involved with knowing more about Aaron's programs, you will find it at Fire Mountain Programs. Thank you so much, Aaron. I look forward to our next conversation and enjoy the next 4 weeks.
Thank you. You too. And thank you for the information on the hijackals. That's incredible stuff. I'll bring you on the Beyond Risk and Back to talk about that for families.
I'd
But
love
thanks,
to do
Doc. I
that.
really appreciate the opportunity.
Great. Well, thank you for joining us. We're always here. Save Your Sanity podcast. Every now and again, we bring you a bonus live stream. So be sure to subscribe, stick around, listen to what we have to say, and I will always do my best to bring you gold. And until we talk again, remember, you matter. So take really good care of yourself. Talk soon.